Hello and welcome to Exec Edge. My name is Kimberly Cohen and I am your host and executive producer for Exec Edge that is powered by Uniqua AI. Exec Edge came to fruition after becoming a corporate escapee that I am, and we decided to create a place for businesses, for founders, CEOs, and other leaders to be able to really address their mission critical priorities using technology. And that's what Uniqua AI helps with. Today, I have Sarah Seale with me, and she's on Vancouver Island, one of my very favorite places. Sarah Seale Incorporated, and she's a people and organizational strategy specialist with over 2 decades of experience in human resources and organizational development. He brings a unique blend of strategic insight and practical expertise to help businesses transform their people practices. Welcome, Sarah. Really glad to have you here today.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right into it. We've had preliminary conversations, just talking a little bit about what you do, but let's go ahead and tell the audience what brought you to your current business and what you're doing with your strategy these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been, like you said, 2 decades sounds way too much. I can't possibly be that old. Right? No, 2 decades of experience. So we'll gloss right over that. But yeah, no, I have my background really came around business strategy. I worked for an international franchise company on the island of Barbados. That's where I grew up. And franchising really shows you it's business operation excellence at its very best. It's a company saying, we figured it all out, just do exactly what we tell you how to do, from everything from where you're going to get your napkins to where you're going to source your straws to how you're going to train your staff, sure that you have a successful business and you're going to be successful and we're going to be successful and everybody will be happy. So that was 9 years. I'll give the short version. That was 9 years. And that basically created the foundation of my career experience. It was working in an environment like that. When I came to the Canadian market, this is 11 years ago now, I started work as a consultant to apply that to the land here. And I got very involved in the legal cannabis industry. It was just starting off. It had been medically illegal for a while, but it was pre-federal legalization. And there were lots of different companies that were in place. So I joined them with, I've worked with, I think it's over 47 companies in Canada now. I've done a lot of work in Barbados and in the Caribbean, some work in the States. I'm now kind of like delving into the European market now to really help these companies align their people strategy with their business strategy. So that's the long and short. So every client is completely different. Some clients just need recruitment help. Some have just bought a manufacturing facility and they're looking for that scaling strategy. They've got 20 people in place and they need to get up to 200 in a very short period of time. We've had a lot of mergers and acquisitions on the Canadian side. There's also been a lot of CCAA, which is our creditor protection, like the one step before bankruptcy here in Canada.
Wow.
We've seen a lot of that. So all of the people strategy, each one of these different models has a very different people strategy that goes into it.
Mhm.
And that's where I come into play.
Amazing. Which one is your favorite? What's your favorite sort of problem to solve?
I love the startups, right? So a lot of the time the startups, especially in this particular industry, and I do work in other industries as well, but in this particular one, you have the most passionate people with just great ideas and they really want to build something. And when I'm brought in at the startup stage, I can help them do that strategically and in line with the budget. Most of the time, 90% of the time, I'm called when the house is burning down and things are going really badly, or somebody critical has left, or they're running out of money. And then it's problem solving and firefighting rather than strategic planning ahead. So
Right.
I really love the strategic roles.
That's great. Tell me a story about a startup that you helped and maybe a few challenges and how you were able to resolve the problem.
Sure. I mean, one of my favorites, it was the first big client that I had on the side here. It was a logistics company that was interested in same day delivery of cannabis products.
Mhm.
And for the Canadian landscape, before legalization, like that wasn't allowed. So now Uber can deliver your cannabis to your door. Everybody saw that that was going to be the future. But at the very beginning, the regulations did not allow for that at all. So this one company They basically came to me, and this visionary CEO who had worked with same day delivery for food before,
Hmm.
and he could see where the path was going to go, and so he was like, how do we build this? Like, I have the idea, we've got the technology, but on the people side, like on the business side, like how do we actually build this into a model? So it started out with three of us in a room and a whiteboard, and it fast forward to 5 years later, it was 800 people, driver, every single province had a little hub, and it was just a fantastic thing to be a part of.
Oh, for sure.
Challenges, we had no money. We had no money. So at the very beginning, when we had the first call center, if you called because you had a problem with your delivery, you would get me or the CEO or our head of operations. Right? It was like
Mhm.
there were three of us. We were very, very bootstrapped, but that made it just made it a lot more rewarding. And I think the industry here, it was one of those like little, like the little engine that could.
Right.
We had a lot of people kind of like rooting for that company model to be successful.
That's great. Yeah. Are they still around today? Are they still operating?
Unfortunately, they're not, because legislation changed, right?
Oh,
The
right.
times changed. So it went from where you had to create this to create same day delivery. You had to have your own technology. You had to domicile all like records and stuff in Canada. Like I said, the Uber model just wasn't allowed, and then the regulations changed, and now they've allowed for that model to be. That's just the preferred way. Stores weren't able to do their own deliveries out to customers until after COVID.
Yeah.
So with that change in the landscape, companies like that didn't survive, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's interesting though. I think it really helped to beget the innovation and the business models that are out there today. And not just for cannabis, but for I mean for liquor distribution, for food.
Mhm.
DoorDash, I mean, you can ask for pretty much anything for somebody to go get it for you. So that's amazing. You guys were on the forefront of that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So I was looking at your website and it mentioned also fractional HR leadership. And we're seeing, obviously you're in Canada, in the US, the job landscape, the world of work landscape is challenging at best. I'm a fractional CMO and I feel like it's a great way for those of us who like to take on a number of different projects and to run our own schedules. It's fantastic for the service provider. Tell me about your fractional HR leadership.
Yeah. So HR, unfortunately, is not a space that it almost seems to be the last thing the companies invest in. It should be
Mm.
one of the first, right? Your people and your strategy and aligning that and making sure that you have the right team in place, doing the right things in the right ways. You can't make a product without having the people behind the scenes to make that product.
Sure.
But unfortunately, it's one of the last areas that actually gets invested in. So especially for the bootstrap startups,
Mhm.
they'll end up having somebody. I work in a couple of different ways. So some companies don't have HR at all. They basically need somebody to come in to set up their foundation and what HR should look like, and then kind of manage it from afar. And they'll have somebody administrative, a secretary or an EA that manages like the paper function of HR. So
Right.
I see a lot more of that than I would like, but that's a good place where when they do run into trouble or they do have a employee issue or there's an investigation that has to occur, there are a number of different things, especially on the cannabis side. There are a number of different things, problems that we see that are very unique. So it's good to have somebody on call for that, for those higher level things.
Sure.
Um, then a lot of them, sometimes you have a company. There's one that I'm going to work with next week. They have an amazing HR department, 4-person team. They've got their recruiter, they've got their higher level, but they've just bought another facility, and so now integrating all of the people processes for 3 different business models and 3 different provincial and 3 different provinces
Mhm.
doing that, and then there's gonna be a scaling strategy as well. They just don't have the bandwidth to do any more than what they're doing right now.
Right.
So this is another area that I come in, and this will very much play into our AI and technology conversation is when I'm going into those, technology didn't used to be a factor in it. It was
Mhm.
how many people can we get in to help with this particular function? And
Right.
now technology has really like helped us to advance and create efficiencies.
Yeah, for sure. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of different aspects of HR, obviously. So there's it can include recruitment and talent acquisition,
Mhm.
but there's just the HR part of it, which is there's HRIS systems. So there's, for varying sizes of companies, and of course payroll, benefits, the whole, all the paperwork that goes along with having employees or contractors, et cetera. Do you have a preferred provider that you usually use for this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I do. I actually partnered this year with Employment Hero. So Employment Hero's HRIS system, they used to be called Humi. So it's very similar to Bamboo HR.
Uh-huh.
And they were acquired by Employment Hero. So I've actually started up a partnership with them this year because Humi used to be my preferred HRIS system that
Mhm.
I used to recommend to all of my clients.
Yeah.
And so now we've partnered together so that I can bring that in.
Awesome.
Solves a lot of problems, takes a lot of the administrative function away from HR. So
Right.
once you with and a lot of these systems, they're all doing the same thing now. It's buckets, it's price brackets, and then a lot of it is like the size of your organization. This can't work for I worked with Island Health last year, which is healthcare here on the island,
Mm.
30,000 people. So a system like this can't work for that. This is like
Right.
300 people and below. You need an ADP or a Ceridian or something for
I
the
know.
larger
Mhm.
organizations.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are doing the same thing to create efficiencies around recruitment, around payroll. You don't necessarily need a payroll specialist anymore.
Yeah.
You just need the right system in place and the right person pushing the buttons.
Sure. And excuse me, I'm not familiar with that one. I actually used to work for Zenefits that was then purchased by TriNet. So I was
Okay.
always competing against like the small business version of ADP and TriNet.
Mhm.
So I had a lot of these conversations. And to me, the most, I guess, important conversation that I would have with my potential clients or current clients was the actual humanity of people management. And there's also, obviously things like Culture Amp and those types of tools where, they can do surveys, they can sort of figure out what the landscape looks like in terms of job satisfaction and stuff like that. Where are you seeing that part of the world of work now, and where are you seeing it going in the future?
Yeah. I mean, it's gotten really creative now. So it used to be just that you could send out surveys for employment satisfaction and then it would go through to HR. HR would then compile a nice report and then would present on that report to whoever the makers of the decisions would be around it.
Mhm.
And it's getting a lot more interactive. So we had a cool one of the clients that I was with 2 years ago called Karma. And it came from my old business partner had this thing that she used to do with her kids that was very cool, where they had these karma sticks in the kitchen. And her children used to be able to give each other karma sticks. And you can give karma, you can never take it away.
Right.
So it's always a positive thing. So if one brother had helped out a little sister, she could go
Mhm.
and she could get a karma stick and she could give it to him so that they could celebrate the fact. And there was like a physical way of her just saying thank you
Mhm.
for helping me and acknowledge. So so it was a really really cool thing. And there's a app for that. Called Karma, where you can put it into, it's a cultural tool. You can put it into organizations so
Mhm.
people can actually give karma to each other and can publicly recognize each other. It links into Microsoft Teams, can publicly recognize each other for different things that they had done during the day that the leadership might not see, their managers might not see. And also just it created this beautiful culture where everybody was constantly just highlighting the actions of others.
Yeah.
And then it was really showing the departments that were working really well and were working really well together and
Right.
the ones that weren't as well.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm seeing a lot more of those. I'm now kind of like diving into different modules like that for culture
Mhm.
creation.
Yes.
So and it's a lot more helpful than people are tired of surveys. They're surveyed out,
Yeah.
right?
And it's hard to action on that immediately too, because
Um,
all the data has to be crunched with the third party. There's obviously the anonymous factor on it as well. So yeah,
yeah.
that can definitely be challenging. That's so interesting. I actually work with a client called itspurelove.com, and they are doing some really innovative stuff by actually analyzing the data in Slack, Teams, and other communication tools to give real-time reporting to the HR, to the fractional HR professional or to the human resources department. And they can obviously describe it a lot better than I can. Making, that the culture, it's so important. It's not just, an intrinsic value thing anymore. It adds real value to the business. Because as we look at a particular company and say they have, they've had a good culture and they've gotten, they have high performers, and then all of a sudden there becomes a drop in performance, or people otherwise become poor performers or start checking out, or what they call it quiet quitting. They need to figure out why, and that can adversely, impact the bottom line of the business. So it's really nice to see that, because of course, as you all know, having to fire somebody or let them go is a whole process. Again, you're in Canada and the US, and in Texas where I'm at, it's a right to work state. So you can fire somebody for anything, but there is still a process and you can still be sued for particular things, and nobody wants to go through that. But then the rehiring, the loss of revenue that you have when that person is not performing or there's nobody in the role, the cost of actually hiring, the ramping period, and all of that time is revenue potentially lost. So something like this that helps to retain the good performers is definitely fantastic for business. I know it is for mine anyway.
Yeah, there are a lot of I love statistics, right?
Mm.
Because numbers that they tell a story, right?
Right.
And there are retention statistics right now that says that basically for every poor performer you have, or the same situation that you're just describing, where you've lost somebody key, the cost of that is 3 times that person's salary
Mhm.
in a given year. And it's not just letting them go and replacing them. It's also the cost to your culture and what it's done to the morale of the team that are around them. Because if everybody then becomes scared for their role, or if that person hasn't been treated fairly, in Canada we have a very long process to let somebody go. It's not as simple as the States.
Yeah.
There's a number of different steps that has to happen. It
Sure.
has to be communicated out in a certain way, and there are a lot of rules that have to be followed before you can actually let somebody go, unless it's very egregious. So with that, there's an impact on the entire team while that process is going on. And
Right.
if you don't handle it properly, then you'll lose them, and you'll get that silent quitting. So you lose productivity on that side as well. So a
For sure.
huge cost to a company if retention and terminations aren't done correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. Definitely on the same page. I think we talked about my husband's been a career talent acquisition person, so he's definitely dealt with a lot of that in his career, and I get to hear all the war stories that go on around it, unless it's confidential.
Yes, of course.
Well, so how are you growing your business now? Forward looking to 26, and I can't believe we're halfway through 26 already, almost 26, 27. How are you, growing your business? And what are you seeing? How do you see technology really filling in with some of that role going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the last 2 years, I try to be as strategic with my business as I tell my clients to be with theirs.
Sure.
So constantly looking for niches and for gaps in the market that are not being utilized, which is one of the reasons why when you look at the Canadian landscape, I think I'm the only person who actually does the different things that I do. You'll have people who very much stay in boxes. So if they're recruiters, they only do recruiting.
Right.
If they're HR fractional, they'll only do that, and they'll do it very specifically for policy, for example,
Yeah.
right? Or for legal. They very much kind of stay in one specialty field,
Mhm.
where I've broadened out. But I've done that as the landscape changes, the working landscape changes, the economic landscape changes. You have to be flexible with your business. So over the last couple of years, I've gone from a recruiting model to an HR model. Last year, I brought in facilitation. Realized with I do a lot of change management and a lot of project management, specifically just helping teams acclimatize to new changes. Most of those are technological changes.
Yeah.
If you bring that in, and so I realized that it's not enough to just go in and lead a team through a project. If you actually change them, train them with the fundamentals of project management and change management, then it changes the entire mindset of that team for the next change that's going to come down the line. they become more high performing because instead of being resistant to changes or being resistant to anything new that's being offered into them by the company, they then are excited because they know how to go through the process of integrating it and really executing it and making sure that that change sticks. So that's been a big one for me in the last year. On the Canadian side, I've moved, changed provinces. So I do a lot of work in Ontario, but I'm based out in BC now. Very, very different landscape out here, just from what needs for a consultant like me.
Mhm.
So I've started delving into healthcare. I do a lot more contract work out here, which I find fascinating.
Mhm.
But and it's outside of the cannabis industry. So I'm delving into more healthcare
Nice.
and technology based products. And then kind of part two, how I've integrated tech with that. It's creating efficiencies, right? So with recruiting now, I know there's a lot of people are online and they're very upset about AI and how AI is changing the recruiting landscape. I personally love it. For every job that I post, I probably get 5,000 responses.
Wow.
We have a very interesting immigration system here in Canada. So
Mhm.
you get a lot of people, even though they find a way around the algorithm, and even though they're not in Canada and they're not legally able to work here yet, they're still applying for roles here.
Wow.
And it's just a massive amount of time to weed through that if your company isn't open to applying for visas or doesn't have that specific need for
Sure.
somebody outside of Canada. And then there's just a huge weeding out process just to make sure that you're actually seeing the qualified candidates that are coming through.
Mhm.
So AI has solved that problem for me.
Okay.
I now can vet it down to, all right, here are 30 people who actually are qualified. They've got the right experience. They've got the right thing, and I can move them through the process. So it's created some great efficiencies for me, especially on the recruitment side.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I've got AI assistants helping with all sorts of things, everything from inbox management to, helping to write social media, posting blogs, all sorts of really cool stuff just for the on the marketing side of things. So I can only imagine. And I know my husband has used AI to its best advantages as well to sort of match up the resumes to the job description and then making a rubric of success just based on what that logic looks like and then
Mhm.
being able to parse out really the best candidates that can be the most successful in those roles. And we are talking about high technology, large enterprise. It is essential because people are delusional about what they might be qualified for. And I think they're just going into, a Starbucks, a coffee shop, and applying for 8 hours a day for anything that requires a person.
We have a little caveat here too. I'm not sure if it's the same in the States, but if you're on unemployment, or here it's called employment EI, employment insurance, you actually have to create a database of all the roles that you've applied for, so that every 2 weeks, when the government sends you your check at any point in time, they can do an audit of you, and you have to be able to qualify exactly the activity that you've done to try and get a job
Right.
for them to keep on giving you money, right? So
Mhm.
there's that as well, where not that people aren't legitimately looking for jobs, but they may be applying for 10 legitimate jobs and then they're just peppering in another 50 to
Right.
make sure that their database looks nice and robust, so
Yeah.
that they can stay on unemployment until they're able to get another one.
Right, which I mean is understandable. If I had to, I would do what I have to do as well, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm just thinking about the HR professional talent acquisition side of things when you're just getting 5,000 applications, and clearly there's not 5,000 people that are actually qualified for that job or would be able to execute on it successfully. So that's got to be a huge challenge. Well, thank goodness for these efficiencies that technology is providing for us. I think I would pull out my hair if I had
Yeah.
that.
Well, and then it's heartbreaking on the other side as well. I had a call
Right.
actually just before this with somebody who they're trying to find a new role right now, and just talking about the lack of even a basic response. Like
Yeah.
there's no human response anymore.
Hmm.
And I understand on one side because there's just not enough hours in the day to be able to get back to everybody, and we're missing amazing candidates who really are qualified because they're
Hmm.
just lost in the mass,
Right.
right?
Yeah. The
Um,
void. They call it the void these days, the black hole.
Yeah, so they're missing out, and they're sitting around just getting depressed and really feeling like I'm qualified, I'm educated, I'm applying for the right roles, I'm doing the right things, but I'm not getting any responses back at all. And it's having a mental effect on people
Sure.
now. So
Yeah.
like for me, it's another area that technology at least it hasn't solved it completely. It's not perfect yet, but it's going a long way towards making sure that we can automate responses to
Sure.
people, their timelines to get back. They're more qualifiers that we can put people through. So at least job applicants they are feeling seen.
Right. Yeah, that's only fair. I mean, if they did go through the trouble of applying. Yeah, that's an interesting point as far as technology goes. I know I've got a daughter who's graduated from college in 5 days, 6 days. And yeah, and especially for somebody who's entry level, just entering the job market, as difficult as it is in the United States right now, it's just absolutely nuts. There's got to be a lot of tenacity that goes along with applications, but it's also, the relationships. And that's something that AI cannot provide. I work in AI all the time, all day, every day, and both before, when I was still in corporate, and now a lot, but there's still the humanity part of it that depends on those relationships and the executive functions of the human being, and being able to prompt the AI, or to, really do the critical thinking behind it. And that's where I think the next step is in terms of AI development, and what's next in terms of the opportunities for using technology in conjunction with the human touch, I guess.
I mean, it misses the context, right? So for everybody who thinks that AI is going to completely
Yeah.
just replace the especially in HR the human aspect, like to
Yeah.
me, it creates efficiencies for the paperwork that takes up the majority of the time,
Right.
so that they can actually have that face to face contact with
Yeah.
people on the site, actual qualified interviews. I can only take you so far, but it's not going to meet the context of why you are the right person for this role, why you are the right person for the culture of the organization.
Right.
It can't do that
Yeah,
yet.
absolutely. I totally agree with that. Well, I really appreciate it, Sarah. If people want to get a hold of you and talk to you more about your services, what's the best way to reach out?
Absolutely. So my site is www.sseale.com. I do have a consultation tab on my website. Guy is amazing. He's put it everywhere, so you really can't miss it. My consultations are free, so anybody can feel free to book in time and reach out to me at any time. I do respond to emails. I do respond to texts. So, and my phone number is in there as well.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time today. I'll be sure to put your contact info in the show notes so that people can reach out to you as well. Sarah, thank you so much for the time today, and thank you for joining us with Exec Edge.
Great. Thank you so much.